The ceremonial hall on Axis Prime stretched wider than 3 football fields. Golden pillars rose 50 feet into the air, each one carved with the history of the Caltharian Empire. Queen Silvara sat on her throne at the far end of the hall, her silver armor catching the light from 1,000 floating lamps. Behind her stood 2,000 warriors in perfect formation, not one of them moving even to breathe too loudly. Danny Wright stood near the human delegation, trying not to look bored. He had been a Marine once, but now he worked security for Earth's diplomatic corps. This peace summit was supposed to be routine. The Caltharians and the Viridian Coalition were finally ending their border war. Danny's job was to stand around looking professional while people signed papers. Next to him, Lisa Grant checked her weapon scanner for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. She was his partner, former Army, and she trusted peace talks about as much as she trusted a broken parachute. "Relax," Danny whispered. "Everyone here has been screened 6 times. That's what worries me," Lisa said. "When security gets this tight, someone always finds a hole." Ambassador Henry Cole stood at the negotiation table with the Viridian delegates. He was an old man who had spent 40 years making enemies talk to each other. Today should have been his greatest success. The treaty document sat on the table, waiting for signatures. Pilot Claire Davis leaned against a pillar near the exit, watching the crowd. She had flown the human shuttle down to the planet, and now she had nothing to do but wait. Her hand stayed close to her sidearm anyway. Old habits. The Viridian delegation included 30 people, but the youngest was Sophie Lee. She was 18, fresh out of university, and thrilled to be part of a historic peace treaty. She kept looking around the hall with wide eyes, taking in every detail. Queen Silvara rose from her throne. The hall fell silent. Even the Caltharians, who had not been moving, somehow became more still. "Today marks the end of 100 years of conflict," she said, her voice carried across the massive space without strain. "Our people have bled enough. The Viridian Coalition has shown courage in seeking peace. We acknowledge this courage." The Viridian ambassador, an older woman named Patricia Kim, bowed. "Your Majesty honors us. Our people are weary of war. We seek a better future." Danny watched the ritual words flow back and forth. This was the boring part of diplomacy. Everyone said nice things that meant nothing until the signatures went on paper. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Then the doors exploded. Not the main doors where everyone had entered. Side doors that were supposed to be sealed burst open in clouds of smoke and fire. Figures in combat armor rushed into the hall from 6 different entry points. Lisa had her weapon up before the smoke cleared. Danny moved to cover Ambassador Cole. Captain Torvin of the Caltharian Royal Guard shouted orders, and his warriors turned to face the threat. But the attackers were fast. They spread through the hall in a pattern that showed military training. And they were already setting up equipment. "Viridian extremists," Lisa said, reading the armor markings. "The ones who opposed the peace talks." Unquote. The leader stepped forward, his armor painted with symbols Danny did not recognize. "I am Commander Vex. This summit is over. The Viridian Coalition has no right to surrender our future to the Caltharian Empire." Queen Silvara did not move from her position. "You violate sacred ground. You will die for this." "No, Your Majesty," Vex said. "You will all stand very still, or you will wish you had died." His soldiers activated the devices they had placed around the hall. The air seemed to hum. Then the pain hit. Danny felt it like fire in his brain. Every nerve in his body screamed at once. His muscles locked up. He could not move his arms, could not turn his head, could not even close his eyes. Around him, everyone else froze in place. Lisa stood with her weapon half raised. Ambassador Cole had his hand stretched toward his communicator. The Caltharian warriors stood like statues. Queen Silvara remained on her throne, but her eyes showed the pain she felt. She could not move either. "Neural inhibitor field," Vex said, walking between the frozen people. "It finds the pain centers in your brain and lights them all on fire at once. If you try to move, the pain gets worse, much worse. So everyone will stay exactly where they are. Danny tried to move his hand. The pain doubled instantly, so intense he wanted to scream. But he could not even do that. His jaw was locked shut. Vex walked up to Sophie Lee. The young woman's eyes were wide with terror, but she could not run or even flinch away. "We will make our demands," Vex said. "If they are not met, we will execute one hostage every hour. This one will be first." He put his hand on Sophie's shoulder. She could not even tremble. Danny's mind raced. The inhibitor field was sophisticated technology. It used neural feedback loops to create paralysis. He had heard about them in military briefings. They were illegal in most of the galaxy because they were considered torture devices. But Danny had an old injury. Shrapnel from an IED in Syria had lodged near his spine 15 years ago. The doctors had removed most of it. But some fragments were too dangerous to extract. They had damaged some of his neural pathways and left scar tissue. He had lived with occasional numbness and pain ever since. Now, feeling the inhibitor field burning through his nervous system, Danny realized something. The field was not affecting him the same way it affected everyone else. It hurt. It hurt badly. But his damaged nerves were not responding the same way healthy nerves did. He tried moving his little finger. The pain spiked. But the finger moved. Just a fraction of an inch. But it moved. Danny kept his face frozen. He did not let his eyes shift. If the extremists realized he could move, they would shoot him immediately. He had to wait for the right moment. Vex was talking, making demands about territory and resources. His soldiers stood guard around the hall. There were 12 of them, all armed with military-grade weapons. Even if Danny could move, he was one man against 12. But Sophie was going to die in less than an hour. And then someone else. And then someone else after that. Captain Torvin stood frozen 10 feet from his queen, and Danny could see the rage in the warrior's eyes. 2,000 Caltherian soldiers stood paralyzed, unable to defend their ruler. The shame of it would haunt them forever if they survived. Danny looked at the weapons storage area where the security teams had placed their equipment before entering the hall. It was 30 feet away. He would have to walk through the pain, grab a weapon, and fight 12 trained soldiers, while everyone else stood frozen. It was impossible. But Sophie was 18 years old, and she was going to die if no one did anything. Danny took a breath. The pain of the neural field made even breathing hard, but he forced air into his lungs. He thought about his Marine training, about all the times instructors had told him that pain was just a signal, and signals could be ignored. He moved his foot forward 1 inch. The pain exploded through his leg like he had stepped on broken glass made of fire. His vision went white for a second. But his foot moved. Vex was still talking, his back to Danny. The other extremists were watching the crowd, looking for any sign of movement. None of them noticed one security officer taking a single small step. Danny took another step. Then another. Each one brought fresh waves of agony through the neural field. He felt blood dripping from his nose from the strain. But he kept moving. Queen Silvara's eyes shifted. Just slightly. Just enough to see Danny walking through the field of frozen bodies. Her expression did not change, but Danny saw something flicker in her gaze. Surprise, confusion, maybe hope. Danny took another step toward the weapons. The extremists still had not noticed. In a hall of thousands of frozen people, one man, moving slowly, was almost invisible, but he had 25 feet left to go, and Sophie had less than an hour to live. Danny kept walking. 20 feet from the weapon storage. Danny's legs shook with each step. The neural inhibitor field screamed through his body like electricity and acid mixed together. Sweat poured down his face. More blood dripped from his nose. But he kept moving. Queen Silvara watched him from her throne. In 5,000 years of Caltherian history, she had never seen anything like this. Her warriors were trained to endure pain, to stand firm in the face of death, to hold formation no matter the cost. But this was different. This was one being walking alone through impossible pain while everyone else stood frozen. In her culture, such individual action would be shameful. Warriors fought as units. They moved together, struck together, died together. A soldier who broke formation to act alone brought dishonor to his entire command. Even in victory, such action would be questioned. But this human was not breaking formation. There was no formation to break. Everyone else was paralyzed. He was simply doing what no one else could do. Silvara tried to understand the logic of it. Her tactical training said this made no sense. One warrior could not defeat 12. One warrior could not disable the inhibitor field and save everyone. This human would die, and his death would accomplish nothing. Yet he kept walking, 15 feet from the weapons. Danny's vision blurred. The pain made thinking difficult. His military training helped. In the Marines, they had taught him pain management, breathing techniques, mental compartmentalization, ways to function when your body screamed at you to stop. But this was beyond anything he had experienced in training or combat. The neural field found every pain receptor in his body and activated them all at once. It was like being burned and frozen and electrocuted simultaneously. He took another step. One of the extremist soldiers turned around. The man was checking the perimeter, making sure no one was trying to move. His eyes passed over Danny, then snapped back. "Commander," the soldier said. "We have movement." Vex stopped talking mid-sentence. He turned to look where his soldier pointed. His eyes found Danny, now just 10 feet from the weapon storage. "What in the void?" Vex said. "How is that possible?" All 12 extremists turned to stare at Danny. He did not bother pretending anymore. He took another step, faster this time. The pain nearly dropped him to his knees, but he stayed upright. "Stop him!" Vex shouted. 2 soldiers moved toward Danny. Their weapons raised but not firing. They seemed confused. The inhibitor field should have paralyzed every being in the hall. Yet this human walked through it. Danny lunged for the weapon storage. His hand closed around a plasma disruptor, just as the first soldier reached him. The man grabbed Danny's arm, trying to pull him back. Danny spun, fighting through the pain, and slammed his elbow into the soldier's helmet. The extremist staggered back. Danny raised the plasma disruptor. "Kill him," Vex ordered. Energy blasts filled the air. Danny dove behind one of the golden pillars as plasma fire scorched the floor where he had been standing. He came up firing, forcing the extremists to take cover. Across the hall, Sophie Lee watched with terrified eyes. She still could not move, but she could see everything. The security officer who had looked bored an hour ago was now fighting 12 armed soldiers alone, and he was doing it to save her. Lisa Grant stood frozen 5 feet from Danny's position. She tried to move, tried to push through the pain and help her partner. Her finger twitched on her weapon trigger. That was all. The pain forced her still again. Danny fired twice more, then ducked as return fire exploded against the pillar above his head. Pieces of carved stone rained down. He rolled to the next pillar, keeping low. His military mind calculated the situation. 12 enemies with superior position. He had one weapon with maybe 40 shots remaining. The inhibitor generator sat on the far side of the hall, protected by half the enemy force. He could not reach it directly, but the hall's architecture gave him options. The Caltharians loved their ceremonies and their grand spaces. The massive pillars were placed in a pattern that created natural cover. If Danny kept moving, kept the extremists guessing, he might buy time for something to change. Another blast nearly took his head off. He returned fire, hitting one extremist in the shoulder. The man went down, armor smoking. "Increase the field strength," Vex shouted. "Make him stop." One of the soldiers adjusted the inhibitor generator. The air hummed louder. The neural field intensified. Danny felt it like a hammer to his brain. He gasped, his legs nearly giving out. The pain went from unbearable to something beyond words. His vision turned red at the edges. Blood ran freely from his nose now, and he tasted copper in his mouth. But he did not fall. He took a step, then another. Queen Silvara watched in growing amazement. By all logic, the human should be unconscious. The inhibitor field at this strength would cause neural damage. It would burn out pain receptors and leave permanent injury. Yet he moved. She thought about human history. Her advisors had briefed her before the summit. Earth was a death world, by galactic standards. Humans evolved in constant danger from predators, weather, disease, and each other. They developed the ability to ignore their body's warning signals when survival required it. But this went beyond survival instinct. This was choice. The human chose to walk through pain that should have killed him. He chose to fight when any reasonable being would surrender. He did it for a young woman he barely knew. Silvara felt something shift in her understanding. For 5,000 years, her people had believed strength came from unity and discipline. They built an empire on coordinated action and shared sacrifice. Individual glory was meaningless. The group was everything. But what happened when the group could not act? What happened when discipline and coordination were stripped away by enemy technology? The Caltherians had no answer. Their culture had no place for individuals who stood alone. Humans did. Danny fired again, forcing two extremists back behind cover. He was bleeding from a dozen places now. The neural field, his old injuries, and the strain of combat were breaking his body down, but he kept fighting. He threw a small explosive toward the inhibitor generator. One of the extremists shot it out of the air before it could reach its target. The explosion rocked the hall, but did no real damage. Vex laughed. "You are impressive, human. But you are one being. We are 12. You cannot win." Danny did not waste breath on a response. He moved to another pillar, fired twice, and kept moving. He was not trying to win. Not yet. He was learning the pattern of their responses, mapping their positions, looking for weaknesses, and he was buying time. Every minute he kept fighting was one more minute Sophie stayed alive. Claire Davis stood frozen near the exit, watching the battle. She was a pilot, trained in combat, but not like Danny. She had flown missions over hostile territory, but she had never fought on the ground like this. Watching her fellow human fight alone while she stood paralyzed made her want to scream. She tried to move. The pain hit like a wall of knives. Her hand twitched, then fell still again. But she had moved. Just a little, but she had moved. Kevin Morris, the diplomatic attaché, stood frozen near the treaty table. He was a talker, not a fighter. But he understood strategy. He watched Danny's movements and realized what the security officer was doing. Danny was not fighting to kill the extremists. He was fighting to reach the generator. Every shot, every movement, every feint was slowly pushing him across the hall toward his real target. Ambassador Henry Cole watched too. In 40 years of diplomacy, he had seen brave acts. He had watched soldiers charge into fire to save civilians. He had seen negotiators risk execution to protect innocents, but he had never seen anyone do what Danny Wright was doing now. The young man was dying. The neural field was cooking his brain from the inside. The combat wounds were adding up. He had maybe minutes before his body failed completely, but he had not stopped moving. Danny's hand found another small explosive in his equipment belt. He armed it, then threw it, not at the generator, but at the ceiling above the generator. The extremists shot at it, but they were too slow this time. The explosive detonated against the carved stone ceiling. A section of ornate architecture collapsed, falling toward the inhibitor generator in a shower of rock and metal. The generator sparked as debris hit it. The humming changed pitch. The neural field flickered. For just a moment, the pain lessened. In that moment, every human in the hall pushed. Lisa moved her arm 6 inches. Claire took a step. Kevin's hand reached his communicator. Ambassador Cole turned his head. Then the field stabilized, and the pain returned full force. The humans froze again. But they had proven something. They could move through the pain. Not easily. Not for long. But they could do it. The Caltherian warriors remained perfectly still. Their pain tolerance was legendary. But their training was all about endurance, not action through suffering. They could stand in place for days under torture, but moving while in pain broke every instinct their culture had drilled into them. Queen Silvara saw the difference. Humans and Caltherians both valued courage, but they expressed it differently. Her people endured. Humans attacked. Danny emptied his weapon's remaining charge at the damaged generator, but the extremists had moved to protect it. They returned fire with everything they had. He dove, rolled, and came up behind another pillar. But this time he was not fast enough. A plasma blast caught his side, burning through his uniform and into his ribs. Danny bit back a scream. The burn added its own agony to the neural field's torture. He looked down at the wound and knew it was bad. He had minutes now, not hours. Sophie Lee watched him stumble. Watched him catch himself against the pillar. She saw the blood spreading across his side. And she understood. This man was going to die, trying to save her. A stranger was giving his life for hers. Tears ran down her frozen face. She could not even thank him. Danny checked his weapon. Empty. He had no more explosives. He was wounded, exhausted, and the neural field was slowly killing him from the inside. He looked across the hall at the generator. 20 feet away. 12 armed soldiers between him and it. Impossible odds. Danny pushed away from the pillar and started walking toward the generator. He had no weapon, no plan, and no chance of success. But Sophie had less than 30 minutes to live, and he was the only one who could move. So he moved. Danny walked into the open. No cover, no weapon, nothing but determination, and a body that was failing fast. The extremists stared at him for a moment, confused by what they were seeing. "He is unarmed," one soldier said. "Then shoot him and be done with it," Vex ordered. But something stopped them. Maybe it was the blood covering Danny's uniform. Maybe it was the way he walked through pain that should have killed him. Maybe it was the simple fact that he kept coming when any sane being would have quit. Lisa Grant watched her partner walk towards certain death. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to move, to fight, to help. She pushed against the neural field with everything she had. Her hand moved an inch. Her foot shifted. The pain was terrible. But she had felt pain before. She was Army. She had fought in 3 wars. Pain was just pain. She took a step. It felt like walking through fire, but her foot moved forward. Then her other foot. The inhibitor field howled through her nerves, but she kept moving. One step. Then another. Across the hall, Claire Davis saw Lisa moving. If one human could do it, others could too. Claire had flown damaged ships through combat zones with half her instruments dead. She had landed burning aircraft on emergency fields. She could handle pain. She took a step. Then another. Her hand reached for her weapon. Ambassador Henry Cole watched the younger humans push through the impossible. He was 70 years old. His body had not seen combat in 40 years. But he had not lived this long by giving up when things got hard. He moved his arm. The neural field tried to stop him. But he had negotiated with warlords and dictators for 4 decades. He knew how to push through resistance. Kevin Morris saw the others moving and felt shame burn through him. He was younger than the ambassador, stronger than Cole, and he was still frozen. He thought about Danny bleeding out in the middle of the hall. He thought about Sophie waiting to die. He took a step. The pain nearly made him vomit, but he took another step after that. The extremists saw the humans moving and opened fire. Plasma blasts filled the air. Danny dove for cover behind a fallen piece of ceiling debris. Lisa fired back. Her shots wild but forcing the enemy to duck. Claire moved toward better position, using the pillars for cover. Vex stared at the scene in disbelief. How are they moving? The field should have them paralyzed. "They are in pain," one of his soldiers said. "Look at them. They are bleeding. The field is working. They are just ignoring it." Danny reached the debris pile near the generator. His vision was fading. Blood loss and neural damage were shutting his body down. He had maybe a minute of consciousness left. He needed to make it count. He pulled himself up the debris pile. Plasma fire exploded around him. A blast caught his leg, and he fell. The world spun. He could hear Lisa shouting something, could hear weapons fire. But it all seemed distant. Sophie watched him fall. No, she thought. Please get up. Please. Danny got up. He did not know how. His body should not have been able to move anymore. But he thought about Sophie, about Lisa, and Claire, and all the frozen people depending on him. He thought about the peace treaty that had been ruined by extremists. He thought about doing what was right. He climbed the debris pile and threw himself at the inhibitor generator. His hands found the power coupling. He ripped at it with bleeding fingers. The generator sparked and buzzed. Electricity arced through Danny's body, adding fresh pain to everything else. But the generator died. The neural field collapsed. 2,000 Caltherian warriors gasped as the pain vanished. Queen Silvara stumbled, catching herself on her throne. Captain Torven drew his weapon with a roar of rage and relief. The extremists realized their mistake too late. They had been watching the humans and had not seen Danny reach the generator. Now they faced 2,000 elite warriors who were no longer paralyzed. Vex raised his weapon toward Sophie. If we cannot hold you here, we will at least deny you this peace. Captain Torven moved. He was 20 feet from Vex, and in Caltherian combat armor that was almost no distance at all. He crossed the space in less than a second and struck Vex's weapon away before the extremist could fire. The other Caltherian warriors surged forward. The 12 extremists tried to fight, but they were vastly outnumbered. Within seconds, all of them were disarmed and forced to their knees. Lisa ran to Danny. He had collapsed next to the destroyed generator, his body finally giving out. Blood pooled beneath him from multiple wounds. His breathing was shallow and irregular. "Danny," Lisa said, pressing her hands against the worst of his wounds. "Stay with me. Medical is coming." Danny opened his eyes. They were unfocused, but he managed to look at Sophie. The young woman was free now, no longer frozen. She was crying but alive. "She okay?" Danny whispered. "She is fine," Lisa said. "You saved her. You saved everyone." "Good," Danny said, his eyes closed. "No," Lisa shouted. "You do not get to do this. You do not walk through hell and then die on me." "Stay awake, Danny." Medical teams rushed into the hall. The Caltherian doctors were the best in the galaxy, but even they looked shocked at Danny's condition. Neural damage, severe burns, blood loss, and multiple wounds. "He should already be dead. Get him stabilized," the lead doctor ordered. Now, they lifted Danny onto a medical platform and rushed him from the hall. Lisa wanted to follow, but Captain Torven stopped her. "Your warrior fought like no one I have ever seen," Torven said. "He stood alone when armies stood frozen. My queen wishes to speak with you." Lisa looked at Queen Silvara. The queen had descended from her throne and now stood among her warriors. She gestured for Lisa to approach. "Your people moved when mine could not," Silvara said. "I watched you all push through pain that should have stopped you." "How?" Lisa thought about how to explain it. "Humans are stubborn, Your Majesty. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the toughest. But we do not know how to quit. It is more than that," Silvara said. "My warriors are trained to endure any hardship. But they are trained to endure as a unit. When the unit cannot move, they do not know how to act alone. Your people do." "We train for independent action," Lisa said. "Every human soldier is taught to think, to adapt, to make decisions without orders. Sometimes you do not have a unit. Sometimes it is just you, and you have to figure out what to do." Captain Torven listened to this. His entire command structure was based on unity and coordination. Soldiers who acted without orders were punished. The idea of training warriors to operate independently was foreign to him, but he had just watched one human change everything by acting alone. Sophie Lee approached Lisa, her legs still shaky from the neural field's after effects. "Is he going to live?" "I do not know," Lisa said honestly. "He took a lot of damage. More than anyone should be able to survive." "He did not even know me," Sophie said. "Why would he do that?" Lisa smiled sadly. "Because that is what humans do. We see someone who needs help, and we help them. It does not matter if we know them. It does not matter if it is dangerous. We help. Ambassador Cole joined them. His face was pale, and he moved slowly, but he was alive. The peace treaty is intact. The Viridian Coalition has disavowed the extremists and reaffirmed their commitment to peace. Small comfort if Danny dies, Lisa said. Agreed, Cole said. But we should honor what he did by making sure his sacrifice meant something. If this peace fails, he bled for nothing. Queen Silvara called for silence. The hall fell quiet instantly. 2,000 warriors and dozens of diplomats turned to listen. Today we were attacked by those who hate peace, Silvara said. They used a weapon that paralyzed us all. Warriors and civilians, mighty and weak, all of us were helpless. She paused, and her voice carried across the hall. All except one. A human security officer named Danny Wright walked through pain that should have killed him. He fought when no one else could fight. He saved us when we could not save ourselves. She looked at Lisa and the other humans. For 5,000 years, my people have believed that strength comes from unity. We have built an empire on the principle that individuals mean nothing, and the group is everything. Today, one individual proved that belief incomplete. Captain Torvin and the other warriors listened. Some looked uncomfortable. Their entire culture was being questioned by their queen. I am not saying we were wrong, Silvara continued. Unity is strength. Coordination is powerful. But we have relied on these things so much that we forgot how to act when they are taken away. The humans remembered, or perhaps they never forgot. She turned to Patricia Kim, the Viridian ambassador. We will sign this treaty, and we will honor the human who made it possible by building a peace that lasts. Patricia bowed. The Viridian Coalition agrees. Your Majesty, and we will remember what one brave human did for all of us. The medical team returned. The lead doctor approached Queen Silvara and bowed. Your Majesty, the human is alive. Barely. We have him in a medical pod. The next 3 days will determine if he survives. Give him the best care we have, Silvara ordered. If he dies after what he did, I will consider it a personal failure. Lisa felt tears on her face. Danny was alive. Not safe, not recovered, but alive. It was more than she had dared hope for. When she watched him collapse, Claire Davis put a hand on Lisa's shoulder. He is tough. If anyone can make it, Danny can. He should not have had to do this alone, Lisa said. We should have been able to help sooner. But we did help, Kevin Morris said. Eventually. He showed us it was possible. And we followed. That matters. 2,000 roamed. The Caltherian warriors began to disperse, taking the captured extremists away. The hall slowly emptied. But people kept looking at the spot, where Danny had stood alone against 12 armed soldiers. Sophie Lee stayed near Lisa. Can I see him? When he wakes up, I want to thank him. You can see him, Lisa said. But he will probably tell you he was just doing his job. That is the kind of person Danny is. Then I will thank him for doing his job, Sophie said, because his job saved my life. Queen Silvara returned to her throne. Captain Torvin remained at her side. The queen looked at her guard captain. What do you think, Torvin? I think we have much to learn from humanity, Your Majesty, Torvin said. We have been content in our strength for too long. We assumed our way was the only way. Today showed us we were wrong. And if Danny Wright dies from his wounds, then we remember him, Torvin said. And we make sure his sacrifice teaches us what we need to learn. Silvara nodded. She looked at the broken generator, at the bloodstains on the floor, at the damaged pillars where plasma fire had burned the ancient carvings. One human had changed everything. He had walked when no warrior moved. He had fought when all armies stood frozen, and the galaxy would never be quite the same. 3 days passed. Danny floated in darkness, aware of nothing. His body fought battles he could not see, repairing damage that should have been fatal. The Caltherian medical technology was advanced beyond anything Earth possessed, but even it struggled with the extent of his injuries. Lisa stayed at the medical facility. She slept in a chair next to Danny's pod and refused to leave. Claire brought her food. Kevin brought her updates on the political situation. Ambassador Cole visited every morning and evening. You should rest properly, Cole said on the second day. He would not want you destroying your health for him. He walked through hell for a stranger, Lisa said. I can sit in a chair for a friend. On the third morning, Danny's eyes opened. The world was blurry at first. Lights too bright. Sounds too loud. Everything hurt. But it was a distant hurt, muted by whatever medication the Caltherians were pumping into him. Lisa's face appeared above him. Welcome back. Danny tried to talk. His throat was dry, and it took 2 attempts to get words out. Sophie, alive and safe, Lisa said. Because of you. Danny closed his eyes in relief, then opened them again. The others? Everyone is fine. The extremists are in custody. The peace treaty was signed yesterday. You did it, Danny. You saved everyone. Danny tried to shake his head but found he could not move much. The medical pod held him in place while his body healed. I just did what anyone would do. No, Lisa said. You did what no one else could do. There is a difference. A Caltherian doctor entered the room. He was tall, even for his species, with silver skin that marked him as old and experienced. The human is awake. Good. We were concerned about neural damage. How bad is it? Danny asked. Bad enough that you should be dead, the doctor said bluntly. The neural inhibitor field at that intensity causes permanent damage. You have burns from plasma fire, blood loss from multiple wounds, and stress damage to your heart and lungs. You survived through sheer stubbornness as far as I can determine. That sounds about right, Lisa said. You will recover, the doctor continued, but it will take time, weeks, perhaps months. The neural damage is healing slower than the physical wounds. Can I have visitors? Danny asked. The doctor considered this. Brief visits. You need rest more than conversation. Over the next few days, visitors came. Claire stopped by with stories about the diplomatic parties celebrating the peace treaty. Kevin brought news from Earth. Ambassador Cole told Danny that the human government was calling him a hero. I am not a hero, Danny said. I just did my job. Your job was to provide security, Cole said. Walking through a neural inhibitor field and fighting 12 armed soldiers alone was not in your job description. Sophie Lee came on the 5th day. She stood in the doorway looking nervous until Lisa waved her in. I wanted to thank you, Sophie said. I know everyone has probably said that, but I needed to say it myself. You do not have to thank me, Danny said. Yes, I do, Sophie said. You did not know me. I was just another person in that hall. But you decided I was worth dying for. That means something. Danny did not know what to say to that. In his mind, he had simply done what was right. Someone was going to die if he did nothing, so he did something. It seemed simple, but looking at Sophie's face, he understood it was not simple to her. She would carry this memory for the rest of her life. The day a stranger gave everything to save her. I am glad you are okay, Danny said finally. Sophie smiled through tears. I am going into diplomatic security. Because of you. I want to protect people the way you protected me. After she left, Lisa looked at Danny. You are changing people's lives just by being you. That seems like a lot of pressure, Danny said. Get used to it, Lisa said. You are famous now. On the 7th day, Queen Silvara came to visit. The medical staff cleared the room. Lisa started to leave, but Silvara gestured for her to stay. The Queen stood beside Danny's medical pod and looked down at him. I have been thinking about what happened, Silvara said. For days I have considered the implications of what you did. Danny waited. He had no idea what to say to royalty. In Caltherian culture, we value the group above the individual, Silvara continued. Our warriors train together, fight together, die together. The idea of acting alone is foreign to us, almost shameful. She paused, and her expression was troubled. But when the neural field froze my warriors, all our unity meant nothing. Our coordination meant nothing. We had 2,000 soldiers, and we might as well have had none. You had yourself, and that was enough. I got lucky, Danny said. My old injury made me partially immune to the field. Lucky, Silvara repeated. Perhaps, but luck only matters if you use it. You could have stayed frozen and pretended you could not move. No one would have blamed you. Instead, you walked through pain that should have killed you, to save people you barely knew. She looked at Lisa. Your people train for this, for independent action, for making decisions without orders. We do not. We have built an empire on unity, but we have forgotten how to function when that unity is broken. Unity is not a weakness, Your Majesty, Danny said. Coordination is powerful. Working together is how civilizations survive. But it is not enough, Silvara said. That is what you taught us. Unity is essential, but individuals matter too. When the group cannot act, someone must stand alone, Lisa spoke up. Humans believe in both. We train soldiers to work in units, but we also train them to think for themselves. Every Marine, every soldier, every security officer learns to operate alone if necessary. That is what we must learn, Silvara said. Captain Torvin has already begun reforms. We are incorporating human training methods into our military academies, teaching warriors to think independently while still maintaining unit cohesion. Danny tried to process this. He had just been trying to stop a bad situation from getting worse. Now entire military doctrines were being rewritten because of it. I do not know if I deserve that much credit, Danny said. You do not get to decide what you deserve, Silvara said. You acted. The consequences of your actions extend beyond your intentions. That is the nature of heroism. She turned to leave, then stopped. There will be a ceremony when you are recovered. The Caltherian Empire wishes to honor what you did. I hope you will attend. Do I have a choice? Danny asked. No, Silvara said. But I thought I should ask anyway. After the Queen left, Danny looked at Lisa. This is going to be annoying, is it not? Very annoying, Lisa agreed. But you are stuck with it now. You are a symbol whether you like it or not. Captain Torvin visited on the 10th day. He brought 3 other Caltherian warriors with him, all senior officers. They stood at attention beside Danny's pod. We came to understand what you did, Torvin said. Not just the action, but the thinking behind it. Walk us through your decisions. Danny was confused. I saw someone in danger and tried to help. That is it. No, Torvin said. It is more. You assessed the situation, identified the objective, calculated risks, and executed a plan. I watched you fight. You were not just reacting. You were thinking several moves ahead. Danny thought back to those terrible minutes in the ceremonial hall. I knew I could not fight them all directly. So I focused on the generator. Everything I did was about reaching that generator. Even when you had no weapon, one of the officers said. Even when you were wounded and bleeding. You still moved toward the objective, because that was the only way to save Sophie and the others, Danny said. If I gave up, everyone died. Torvin nodded slowly. That is what we are learning. Your species fights for objectives, not just for victory. You accept losses if they bring you closer to the goal. We fight for honor and unity. We accept losses only if the group requires it. Both approaches work, Danny said. In different situations. Yes, Torvin said. Which is why we must learn both. Our way is not wrong, but it is incomplete. You have shown us the missing piece. The Caltherian officers all saluted. It was a gesture of respect that Danny had never seen them give to non-Caltherians before. After they left, Danny stared at the ceiling. He had been a Marine. Then, a security officer. He had never tried to change the galaxy or inspire alien civilizations. He had just tried to do his job and do it well. Now armies were studying his actions, queens were reforming their militaries, and everyone was calling him a hero. On the 14th day, the doctors released Danny from the medical pod. He could walk with help. His burns were mostly healed, though the scars would remain. The neural damage was improving but would take months to fully resolve. Lisa helped him to a window. Outside, The city of Axis Prime spread across the landscape. Ships came and went from the spaceport. Life continued. The peace is holding, Lisa said. Both sides are committed. The extremists are going to trial. Everything you fought for is working. Danny watched a Caltherian transport ship land at the spaceport. I did not fight for peace. I fought for Sophie. The peace was just happening around me. Does it matter? Lisa asked. The result is the same. I guess not, Danny said. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Danny spoke again. Do you think it will last? The peace? I think it has a better chance now, Lisa said. Because the Caltherians learned something important. They learned that sometimes the group fails. And when that happens, someone has to stand alone. That lesson might save them someday. Or it might get someone killed trying to be a hero, Danny said. Maybe, Lisa said. But you cannot protect people from their own courage. If someone wants to stand up and fight when everyone else is frozen, you cannot stop them. You can only hope they succeed. Danny thought about that. He thought about all the humans who had pushed through the neural field after seeing him move. He thought about Lisa taking steps through impossible pain. He thought about Claire and Kevin and Ambassador Cole all fighting when their bodies screamed at them to stop. We are a stubborn species, Danny said. The stubbornest, Lisa agreed. And the galaxy is learning that stubbornness can change everything. Ambassador Cole entered the room. Danny, good to see you mobile. We need to discuss your future. My future? Danny asked. Earth wants you home for debriefings and medals, Cole said. The Caltherians want you to stay for their ceremony. The Viridians want to give you citizenship. And about 50 news organizations want interviews. Danny closed his eyes. Can I just go back to standing around at boring diplomatic meetings? No, Cole said. Those days are over. You changed the galaxy, Danny. Now you have to deal with the consequences. I hate consequences, Danny said. Lisa laughed. You walked through a neural inhibitor field and fought 12 armed soldiers. I think you can handle some press conferences. The neural field was easier, Danny muttered, but he knew they were right. He had acted, and actions had consequences. The galaxy was different now, because one human had refused to stay frozen. Danny just hoped he had changed it for the better. 6 weeks after the summit attack, Danny stood in the same ceremonial hall where he had nearly died. The broken pillars had been repaired. The bloodstains were gone. But the memory of that day remained in everyone who had been there. The hall was full again. Queen Silvara sat on her throne, her royal guard standing in perfect formation behind her. But something was different now. The warriors stood with a new awareness, a new understanding that formation could be broken, and individuals might need to act alone. Lisa stood beside Danny, dressed in her formal uniform. Claire and Kevin were there too, along with Ambassador Cole and the entire human delegation. Sophie Lee stood with the Viridian representatives. No longer a frightened aide, but a confident young diplomat. Captain Torvin stepped forward, his voice carried across the hall without amplification. 6 weeks ago, this hall was attacked. A weapon froze us all in place. Warriors and civilians alike were helpless. All except one, he gestured to Danny. Security Officer Danny Wright of Earth moved when no warrior could move. He fought when all armies stood frozen. He saved lives at the cost of his own health and safety. Danny felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had agreed to attend this ceremony, but he still did not feel like a hero. He had just done what needed doing. Queen Silvara rose from her throne and descended to the main floor. This was unusual. Caltherian queens did not leave their elevated positions during ceremonies, but Silvara was changing tradition the same way Danny had changed everything else that day. She approached Danny and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. For 5,000 years, my people have believed that individuals mean nothing, and the group is everything. We built an empire on unity and coordination. We conquered worlds through discipline and shared sacrifice. She paused, and the hall was silent. Then one human showed us what we had forgotten. Unity is powerful, but it is not enough. When the group cannot act, someone must stand alone. When all warriors are frozen, one brave soul must move. She held up a medallion made of silver metal inscribed with Caltherian symbols. This is the Star of Kalthos. In our history, it has been awarded 312 times, always to warriors who showed exceptional courage in defense of others. Today, for the first time, we give it to someone who is not Caltherian. She placed the medallion around Danny's neck. The weight of it was substantial, both physically and symbolically. Danny, right. You are now First Breaker, Silvara said. The one who broke paralysis. The one who broke tradition. The one who broke our understanding of what courage means. The Caltherian Empire honors you. The Caltherian warriors saluted as one, 2,000 soldiers acknowledging a human who had done what they could not. Danny did not know what to say. Finally, he managed, "Thank you, Your Majesty." "I am honored," Silvara smiled slightly. "You are uncomfortable with honor. That is good. Those who seek glory rarely deserve it. Those who simply act often do." Patricia Kim, the Viridian ambassador, approached next. She carried a document case made of polished wood. "The Viridian Coalition also wishes to honor you. You saved one of our citizens, Sophie Lee, and by doing so, you preserved the peace our people desperately needed." She opened the case and removed a citizenship document. "You are now a citizen of the Viridian Coalition, with all rights and privileges that entails. You will always have a home among our people." Danny accepted the document. "Thank you, Ambassador. I hope Sophie is doing well." "She is thriving," Patricia said. "And she speaks of you often." Ambassador Cole stepped forward next. "Earth has also sent recognition. The President has awarded you the Medal of Honor for your actions. Additionally, you have been promoted and offered a position with the Diplomatic Protection Service." Danny blinked. "I was just doing my job. Your job was to provide security," Cole said. "You provided salvation. There is a difference." Quote, the ceremony continued. Other dignitaries spoke. Other honors were given. Danny stood through it all, feeling more like a symbol than a person. He understood what Silvara had meant. He did not get to decide what he deserved. Others decided that for him. Finally, the formal ceremony ended. The crowd began to disperse, but individuals approached Danny to speak with him personally. Sophie was first. She hugged him, which surprised Danny. Viridians were not usually demonstrative with non-family. "I start my security training next month," Sophie said. "Because of you. You are choosing a hard path," Danny said. "You chose a harder one," Sophie replied. "And you showed me it was possible. If you could walk through that pain alone, I can handle training exercises." Captain Torvin approached after Sophie left. The Caltherian warrior looked different somehow. Less rigid, more thoughtful. "We have made changes," Torvin said. "Our military academies now teach independent decision-making alongside traditional unit tactics. Young warriors learn to think for themselves while still honoring the group." "That sounds like a good balance," Danny said. "It is because of you," Torvin said. "Before that day, I believed deviation from formation was shameful. Now I understand that sometimes formation must break for the greater good. You taught us that lesson in blood and pain." "I did not mean to teach anyone anything," Danny said. "The best teachers rarely do," Torvin said. He saluted and walked away. Lisa found Danny after most of the crowd had left. They walked together through the hall, their footsteps echoing on the polished floor. "How are you feeling?" Lisa asked. "Tired," Danny said. "And confused. I still do not understand why everyone is making such a big deal about this." "Because you changed things," Lisa said. "Not just the peace treaty. Not just military doctrine. You changed how an entire civilization thinks about courage and individuality." Danny stopped walking and looked at the spot where he had fought. The floor showed no sign of the battle now, but he could still see it in his mind. The pain, The blood. The impossible choice to keep moving when everything screamed at him to stop. I was terrified, Danny admitted. The whole time, I thought I was going to die. But you moved anyway, Lisa said. That is what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but action, despite it. They continued walking. Outside, the sun was setting over Axis Prime. The sky turned purple and gold. What are you going to do now? Lisa asked. I do not know, Danny said. Go back to Earth, I guess. Do the promotion ceremony. Try to find some normal again. Normal is over, Lisa said. You are famous across 3 civilizations. Everywhere you go, people will know what you did. That sounds exhausting, Danny said. It is, Lisa agreed. But you will adapt, you always do. Danny touched the medallion around his neck. The Star of Kalthos. A symbol that he was now part of history whether he liked it or not. 3 months later, Danny stood in a training facility on Earth. He was mostly healed now, though he still had trouble sleeping and occasional pain from the neural damage. The doctors said that might be permanent. He was watching a class of new diplomatic security officers. Their instructor was showing them tactical scenarios, teaching them to think independently while still working as a team. The key is adaptability, the instructor said. You need to function as part of a unit, but you also need to be ready to act alone if the situation demands it. Can anyone give me an example of successful independent action? One young officer raised her hand. Danny Wright at Axis Prime. He operated alone when everyone else was incapacitated. The instructor nodded. Exactly. Wright's actions are now studied in security training across human space. He saw what needed to be done and did it. Even though the odds were impossible and he had no support, Danny slipped away before anyone noticed him watching. He still did not like being used as an example, but he understood why it mattered. Every person who learned from what happened might save lives someday. Every Kaltherian warrior who learned to think independently might survive a situation their training had not prepared them for. Every diplomat who remembered that individuals could change the galaxy might be inspired to act when others would not. Lisa found him in the cafeteria later, drinking coffee and reading reports. Hiding from your own legend? Trying to, Danny said. How is it going with you? They promoted me too, Lisa said. Put me in charge of a whole security team. Apparently fighting through a neural inhibitor field looks good on a resume. You earned it, Danny said. We all earned it, Lisa said. You just earned it more than the rest of us. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lisa spoke again. I got a message from Sophie. She passed her first round of security training. Top of her class. Good for her, Danny said. She said to tell you that every time the training got hard, she remembered watching you walk through that hall. If you could do the impossible, she could handle basic training. Danny smiled despite himself. She is going to be good at this. Because you inspired her, Lisa said. That is your legacy, Danny. Not just saving people that day, but inspiring countless others to be braver than they thought they could be. Danny thought about that. He had walked through pain because someone needed saving. He had fought because surrender meant death for innocence. He had moved when others stood frozen because it was the right thing to do. And somehow, that simple choice had changed the galaxy. Messages arrived regularly from Axis Prime. Captain Torvin sent updates on the military reforms. Queen Silvara wrote personally to ask Danny's opinion on training protocols. Sophie sent pictures from her security classes. Even the Viridian Coalition reached out, asking if Danny would visit their worlds and speak to their security forces. Everyone wanted a piece of the man who had moved when all warriors stood frozen. Ambassador Cole visited Danny's office one afternoon. I have a proposal for you. I do not like proposals, Danny said. You will like this one, Cole said. We are establishing a new position. Cultural liaison for military exchange programs. The job is to work with alien militaries, share training techniques, and build stronger cooperation between species. That sounds like a diplomat job, Danny said. I am security, not politics. You are both now, Cole said. Whether you want to be or not. The galaxy knows your name. They respect what you did. Use that respect to build something lasting. Danny considered it. He could refuse. He could go back to regular security work and try to fade into anonymity. But Lisa was right. Normal was over. He had become a symbol, and symbols had responsibilities. "Will I have to give speeches?" Danny asked. "Probably," Cole admitted. "I hate speeches," Danny said. "I know," Cole said. "But you will do them anyway, because that is who you are. Someone who does what needs doing, even when it is hard." Danny looked at the reports on his desk. Messages from 3 civilizations. Requests for training assistance. Proposals for military exchanges. All of it stemming from one day when he had refused to stay frozen. "All right," Danny said. "I will do it." Cole smiled. "Good. Your first assignment is next month. The Caltherian Military Academy wants you to speak to their newest cadets." "Of course they do," Danny muttered. A year after the incident at Axis Prime, Danny stood in a Caltherian classroom. Young warriors sat in rows, watching him with the intense focus their species was known for. Their instructor had introduced Danny and then stepped back, giving him the floor. Danny had given this speech a dozen times now, but it never got easier. "I am not a military theorist," he began. "I am not a hero. I am just a security officer who had a very bad day." The cadets listened without interruption. That was the Caltherian way. "On that day, I had to make a choice," Danny continued. "Everyone around me was frozen. Someone was going to die if I did nothing. So I did something. It hurt. It almost killed me. But I did it anyway." He paused, thinking about how to explain what he had learned. "Your instructors are teaching you to think independently now. To act alone when necessary. That is good. But remember this. Acting alone is not about glory or heroism. It is about doing what is right when no one else can do it." He looked at the young faces watching him. "Some of you will face impossible situations. Some of you will have to choose between safety and duty. When that moment comes, you will be alone with your decision. No one can make it for you." One cadet raised her hand. "How do you decide? How do you know when to act alone?" "You ask yourself one question," Danny said. "If I do nothing, what happens? If the answer is that innocent people die or evil succeeds, then you act. Even if the odds are impossible. Even if you are alone, you act." After the class, the instructor thanked Danny. "You are helping us build a new generation of warriors, ones who can think for themselves while still honoring the collective." Danny looked at the cadets filing out of the classroom. They would face battles he could not imagine. Some of them would die, but some of them might survive because they learned to adapt and act independently when tradition demanded they stay in formation. If his experience helped even one of them, maybe all the pain had been worth it. That evening, Danny sat in his quarters on the Caltherian world and composed a message to Lisa. He told her about the class, about the cadets, about the strange feeling of watching his actions become part of military doctrine. Her reply came an hour later. "You are changing the galaxy one cadet at a time. That is more than most people ever accomplish. Be proud of it." Danny was not sure he was proud. But he was content. He had done something difficult. And it had mattered. It continued to matter, rippling outward in ways he could never have predicted. The neural inhibitor field had frozen thousands. But one human had moved. And in moving, he had changed not just a battle, but the future itself. Years from now, when history books told the story of the Axis Prime incident, they would focus on the drama. One man against impossible odds. The lone warrior who saved everyone. But Danny knew the real story was simpler and more important. When everyone else was paralyzed, someone had to take the first step. Someone had to decide that pain and fear were not good enough reasons to let innocent people die. He had been that someone. Not because he was special or heroic, but because he was there, and he refused to accept paralysis. And that, Danny thought, was the real lesson. Heroism was not about being special. It was about being willing to act when action was needed. The galaxy was learning that lesson. One cadet at a time. One warrior at a time. One person at a time, realizing that sometimes, when no one else can move, you have to be the one who steps forward. Danny looked out his window at the alien sky. He was far from Earth, teaching warriors of a civilization older than human history. His body still carried scars from that terrible day in the ceremonial hall, but Sophie was alive. The peace held, and young warriors across the galaxy were learning that individuals mattered, that one person could change everything. That movement was possible even when the whole world seemed frozen. That was enough. That would always be enough. Danny Wright had moved when no warrior moved. And the galaxy would never forget.